डॉक्टर फलक स्टार्ट कर
हाँ
दे।
जी।
स्टार्ट कर दे।
Dr. Amreen, can you hear me?
जी जी, आई कैन हियर यू।
Oh. Okay. Assalamu alaikum, students. Hope you all will be fine. And today we are having a physiology revisit lecture on the menstrual cycle, right? So, coming to the learning objectives. At the end of the lecture, you should be able to define menstrual cycle, and you should be able to describe the different physiological changes that occur in the female reproductive organs during this period. You should be able to explain the regulation of menstrual cycle and can explain the different physiological applied process associated with the menstrual cycle, right? So coming to our first learning objective, that is you should know how to define the menstrual cycle, okay? So the menstrual cycle, it is a series of monthly natural changes in hormone production and the structure of the uterus and the ovaries of the female reproductive system that make the pregnancy possible. The duration of the cycle averages around 28 days, but it can be short as 20 days or as long as 35 days. Now, what is the aim of this menstrual cycle? The main aim of this menstrual cycle is that a single ovum is normally released from the ovaries each month. So normally only a single fetus will begin to grow at a time. Second thing is to prepare the uterine endometrium in advance for implantation of the fertilized ovum at the required time of the month. Is it clear? Now, coming to the second learning objective, that is to describe the physiological changes that occur in the female reproductive organ during the menstrual cycle. So you should know that the external manifestation of a normal menstrual cycle is the presence of regular vaginal bleeding, which occurs as a result of the shedding of the endometrial lining following failure of the fertilization of the oocyte or of implantation. Remember, this is the only manifested sign of a normal menstrual cycle. The cycle depends on changes that occurs after puberty within the ovaries and fluctuation in their hormone levels, which themselves are controlled by the pituitary and the hypothalamus within the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. Now, what is the age of onset? At around the age of 9 to 12 years, the pituitary begin to secrete progressively more follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, which leads to the onset of normal monthly sexual cycles, which begins between the age of 11 and 15 years. So you can say that the onset of menstrual cycle is around 11 to 15 years of age. So this period of change is called the puberty, and the time of the first menstrual cycle is called the menarche. During each month of the female sexual cycle, there is a cyclical increase and decrease of follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormone. Remember, there is increase and decrease that is cyclical. This FSH and LH are not released in a constant way. Okay. Now, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, they stimulate their ovarian target cells by combining with highly specific receptors, that is FSH receptor and the luteinizing hormone receptors that are present on the ovarian target cell membrane. The activated receptors increase the cell rate of secretions, their growth and proliferation by activation of the cyclical adenosine monophosphate second messenger system in the cell cytoplasm, which causes the formation of protein kinase and multiple phosphorylation of the key enzymes take place. Look, here is follicle stimulating hormone in yellow color. In the green, they are showing the follicle stimulating hormone receptor. They are activating the G protein, which leads to the second messenger activation, that is the cyclic AMP, and then activation of phosphokinase, which lead to phosphorylation of different enzymes. Now, coming to the phases of menstrual cycle. Simultaneously, the menstrual cycle is occurring at two places, the ovaries and the uterus. Okay, so when we talk about the ovaries, we can say that these are the series of changes in the ovaries during which the follicle matures, the ovum is shed, and the corpus luteum develops, that consist of follicular phase, ovulatory phase, and the luteal phase. Okay, so remember these three phases are related with the ovarian cycle phase. But when we talk about the uterine cycle, these include the series of changes that occur to the lining of the uterus, the endometrium, and is divided into menstruation phase, the proliferation proliferative phase and the secretory phase. Okay, so this identification of the phases is very much important because they can come in your exam. So coming to the first phase, that is the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle, right? So you should know how the follicle is developed. Okay, you know that ovum at birth is surrounded by a single layer of a granulosa cell. This cell is called the primordial follicle. Okay, this is the nucleus, this is a single layer of granular cell, and this whole is known as the primordial follicle. These granular cells, they are believed to nourish the ovum, and they secrete the oocyte maturation inhibiting factor that is thought to keep the ovum in its primordial state, that is arrested at prophase 1 of meiosis 1. Okay. So additional layer of granular cell develop at the time passes, then this is known as primary follicle. Okay. Remember this thing that the initial stages are independent of the hormonal stimulation, but dependent from the preantral stage and onward. It can come in exams. Okay, this is a diagram that is showing you the primary follicle with multiple layer of granulosa cells. Now, how the development of secondary follicle occurs. The follicle proliferate, leading to the development of more granular cells layer and the development of the theca cells from the spindle cells of the ovarian interstitium, right? The theca cells is again divided into two layers, the theca interna and the theca externa. The theca interna secretes hormones, while the theca externa, it becomes the capsule of the developing follicle. After the early phase of the growth, which lasts a few days, the granular cells secrete an estrogen-rich follicular fluid. Okay, this is a diagram that is showing you the secondary follicle. There are multiple granular cell layers and also the presence of theca cells. And this diagram is showing you the difference between the theca interna. These are actually epithelioid nature cells, and this is the external theca externa, which forms the capsule of the growing follicle. Now, how this antral follicle and vesicular follicles are developed? You know, the follicle that was having a fluid that was estrogen rich, this accumulate inside the or in between the granular cells, right? And this causes the development of antrum. Antrum is what? Antrum is simply a cavity. Okay, this follicle is now known as the antral follicle. This is again followed by multiple growth of larger follicle that will lead to the vesicular follicle. This growth is by estrogen mediated increased follicular stimulating hormone receptors that cause positive feedback effect. Okay. Now, follicle stimulating hormone and estrogen, they promote both in combination promote luteinizing hormone receptors on the granular cell, remember, which allows luteinizing hormone stimulation in addition to FSH stimulation and more rapid increase in the follicular secretion. Okay, so as the follicle enlarges, the ovum remains embedded in a mass of granular cells located at one pole of the follicle. Okay, so this type of follicle is also known as tertiary follicle. Look, their whole antral cavity is there, and this is known as antral follicle or the pre-ovulatory follicle. Okay. Now this is a diagram that is showing the different stages of follicular development, right? This is the preantral phase, that is primordial, primary, secondary, then the tertiary follicle that has developed the antrum within it, and then comes the pre-ovulatory follicle. Now, you should know that only one follicle fully matures each month and the remainder undergo atresia, right? After a week or more, one of the follicle begins to outgrow all the others, and the remaining developing follicles, they involute in a process of atresia. Now, these type of follicles, they are known as atretic follicles because they have been atretic, right? This all process occurs because large amount of estrogen from most of the rapidly growing follicle, that is the dominant follicle, they act on the hypothalamus to depress further follicle stimulating hormone secretion. In this way, it blocks further growth of the less well-developed follicle. Means it is the one follicle that has dominated. So this dominant follicle, it continues to grow because it has its own positive feedback effect, highest aromatase activity, highest follicle stimulating hormone induced luteinizing hormone receptors. That's why it has become dominant. So this single follicle reaches up to a diameter of 1 to 1.5 centimeter at the time of ovulation. And this is now the mature follicle. Now, this is again a diagram from the Guyton, and this is showing you the different stages of oogenesis, that is in the germ pool, and this is the follicular development in the ovary. This is the primary follicle, pre-ovulatory follicle just before the ovulation, and here is the diagram that is showing you the ovulation has occurred. Okay, if the sperm fertilizes the egg, then it will complete its meiosis type 2. Otherwise, the corpus luteum develop, and this corpus luteal development is our third stage of the development of this ovulatory cycle. Now coming to the ovulation phase of the ovarian cycle, right? How ovulation takes place? Ovulation in a normal 20-day sexual cycle, it occurs around 14 days before the onset of menstruation. And remember, it is a fixed period. Shortly before ovulation, the outer wall of the follicle, it swells up, and a small area in the center of the follicle capsules called the stigma protrude. Look, this is the area of the stigma, and here the follicle fluid is protruding. In another 30 minutes or so, the fluid begins to ooze from the follicle. Look, here's the fluid, it oozes from the follicle through the stigma, then it ruptures, allowing more viscous fluid to escape, right? This viscous fluid carried with it the ovum surrounded by a mass of several thousand small granular cells called the corona radiata. Okay, this is the expelled ovum, this is the circular granular cells layer, and this whole structure is now known as corona radiata. You should be very much familiar that the surge of luteinizing hormone is very much important for the ovulation, right? So about 2 days before the ovulation, the rate of secretion of luteinizing hormone increases markedly. It rises approximately 6 to 10 folds and peaking at about 14 to 16 hours before ovulation. Some of the BCQs can come from this way, that what is the estimated time before ovulation when there is pre-ovulatory surge of luteinizing hormone. So you should be knowing this time period. So follicle stimulating hormone, it also increases, but 2 to 3 fold at the same time. So both these hormones, follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, they act synergistically to cause swelling of the follicle. Remember, the luteinizing hormone causes the granular cells and the theca cells to become progesterone secreting cells. Okay, so the rate of secretion of estrogen, it begins to fall at about 1 day before ovulation, while increasing amount of progesterone begins to be secreted, and all these events lead collectively to cause ovulation.
काम करें आप
Without the initial pre-ovulatory surge of luteinizing hormone, ovulation will not take place. Is it clear, beta? Now, how ovulation is initiated? The theca externa cells releases proteolytic enzyme from the lysosomes, which causes dissolution and weakening of the follicular capsule wall, swelling of the entire follicle, and the degeneration of the stigma that I have showed you before. There is rapid growth of the new blood vessels into the follicular wall, and the prostaglandin are secreted into the follicular tissue. All leads to the plasma transudation. You know, transudation is the influx of the fluid into the follicle, and the follicle swelling takes place. Finally, the combination of follicle swelling and the simultaneously degeneration of the stigma all causes the follicle rupture with discharge of the ovum that we have already discussed. Now, this is a diagram that is showing you the multiple stage of follicular development, and here you can see that the ovulation takes place, the remaining cells behind, they form the corpus luteum. Here is the ovulation, and this ovum is surrounded by corona radiata. Okay, so this corpus luteal phase will be our third phase, luteal phase of the ovarian cycle. Okay, during the first few hours after expulsion of the ovum from the follicle, the remaining granular cells and the theca interna cell, remember, theca interna cells, they change rapidly into the lutein cells. Okay, they enlarge in diameter two or more times, and they are filled with lipid inclusions. Lipid inclusion means lipid bodies that give them a yellowish appearance. That's why it is known as corpus luteum. Corpus means a body, any body, and luteum means yellow. This process is called luteinization, and the total mass of the cell together is called the corpus luteum. The granular cell in the corpus luteum, they form large amount of progesterone and the estrogen. Remember this corpus luteum, with more progesterone than estrogen during the luteal phase, right? These are very much important points to be noted, that which hormones is released at which stage of the or which phase of the menstrual cycle. Now, corpus luteum. Corpus luteum normally grows to about 1.5 centimeter in diameter, reaching this stage of development 7 to 8 days after ovulation. Then the corpus luteum begin to involute and eventually loses all its secretive function and its yellowish lipid characteristics about 12 days after ovulation. Remember that about 12 days after ovulation, if the fertilization has not taken place, it is then converted into corpus albicans. Albicans is the term that is related with the white, means the white body. So during the ensuing few weeks, the corpus albicans is replaced by the connective tissue, and over month it is absorbed. In this diagram, you can see that here is the corpus luteum. Okay, and here is the corpus albicans, which is actually the corpus albicans of the previous month. Now, involution of the corpus luteum and the onset of the next ovarian cycle, how it occurs. You know that estrogen and progesterone secreted by the corpus luteum during the luteal phase have a strong feedback effect on the anterior pituitary gland to maintain low secretory rate of both FSH and LH, right? So the luteal cells, they secrete a small amount of the hormone inhibin also, which inhibit follicle stimulating hormone secretion. The luteal cells secrete a small amount of hormones. This we have already discussed. Okay, low blood concentration of both follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. They occurs, and loss of these hormones finally causes the corpus luteum to degenerate completely in a process called involution of the corpus luteum. So final involution normally occurs at the end of almost exactly 12 days of the corpus luteum that we have discussed before, which is around the 26th day of the normal female sexual cycle, that is approximately 2 days before the menstruation begins. At this time, the sudden cessation of secretion of the estrogen, progesterone, and inhibin by the corpus luteum removes the feedback inhibition of the anterior pituitary gland, and it allows to begin secreting increasing amount of FSH and LH again, right? So FSH and LH initiate the growth of new follicle, beginning of a new follicle. The paucity of secretion of progesterone and the estrogen at this time also lead to menstruation by the uterus. Okay, I'm slowing my speed. Now coming to, all we have discussed was about the ovarian cycle of the menstrual cycle. Okay, in ovarian cycle, the first phase is the follicular development or the follicular phase, right? The second phase is the ovulation, and then after ovulation, the corpus luteal remains, and this phase is known as luteal phase. Now the second portion is uterine or endometrial cycle. Associated with the monthly cyclical production of the estrogen and progesterone by the ovaries is an endometrial cycle in the lining of the uterus, right? That operates through the following stages. The first is the proliferation of the uterine endometrium. The second is the development of the secretory changes in the endometrium. The third is the desquamation of the endometrium that is manifested in the form of menstruation or menstrual bleeding, right? So these three are the uterine or endometrial phases of uterine cycle. Now coming to the first phase, that is the proliferative phase. Proliferative phase, why? Because there is proliferation of endometrial glands and stroma. This phase corresponds with the pre-ovulatory phase of the ovarian cycle. Okay, so at the beginning of each monthly cycle, most of the endometrium has been desquamated by menstruation, as you know, and only a thin layer of endometrial stroma and epithelial cells in the deeper portion of the gland and crypts of the endometrium remains. Okay, so under the influence of estrogen, which is secreted in increasing quantities by the ovary during the first part of monthly ovarian cycle that we have already discussed, the stromal and the epithelial cells, they start to proliferate. The endometrial surface is re-epithelialized within 4 to 7 days after the beginning of menstruation. Remember, there is re-epithelialization of the endometrial surface within 4 to 7 days after the onset of menstruation, right? So then during the next week, and a half before ovulation occurs, the endometrium increased greatly in thickness owing to increased numbers of stromal cells and the growth of the endometrial glands and new blood vessels into the endometrium. Okay, so at the time of the ovulation, the endometrium is about 3 to 5 millimeter in thickness. Coming to the second phase, that is the secretory phase. It is also known as progestational phase because it enhances the implantation of a fetus. It corresponds with the post-ovulatory phase of the ovarian cycle. During most of the later half of the cycle, after ovulation, progesterone and estrogen together, they are secreted in large quantities by the corpus luteum, as we have already discussed. The estrogen causes slight additional cellular proliferation in the endometrium, whereas progesterone causes marked swelling and secretory development of the endometrium, right? So the gland increase in tortuosity and an excess of secretory substance accumulate in the glandular epithelial cells. In addition, the cytoplasm of the stromal cells increases, lipid and glycogen deposit increase greatly in the stromal cells, and the blood supply to the endometrium further increases, with the blood vessel becoming highly tortuous. At the peak of secretory phase, about 1 week after the ovulation, the endometrium has a thickness of about 5 to 6 millimeter, right? So the whole purpose of all these endometrial changes is to produce highly secretory endometrium that contain large amount of stored nutrients to provide appropriate condition for implantation of a fertilized ovum during the later half of the monthly cycle, okay? Now coming to the third phase of endometrial cycle. If the ovum is not fertilized about 2 days before the end of the monthly cycle, the corpus luteum in the ovary involutes and the ovarian hormone, estrogen and progesterone, they decrease to low levels of secretions. Menstruation follows, right? There is decreased stimulation of the endometrial cells by these two hormones, followed rapidly by involution of the endometrium to about 65% of its previous thickness. Then during the 24 hours preceding the onset of menstruation, the tortuous blood vessels leading to the mucosal layers of the endometrium become vasospastic due to the release of a vasoconstrictor substance and prostaglandins. The vasospasm, the decrease in the nutrients to the endometrium, and the loss of hormonal stimulation initiate necrosis in the endometrium, especially of the blood vessels. As a result, the blood at first seeps into the vascular layers of the endometrium, and the hemorrhagic area grows rapidly over a period of 24 to 36 hours. So gradually the necrotic outer layer of the endometrium separates from the uterus at the site of the hemorrhages until about 48 hours after the onset of menstruation. All the superficial layer of the endometrium have desquamated. Okay, so the mass of these squamated tissues and the blood in the uterine cavity plus contractile effects of prostaglandin or other substances in the decaying these squamates all acting together initiate uterine contractions that expels the uterine content. But you remember these uterine contractions are mild, okay? So during the normal menstruation, approximately 40 milliliter of blood and an additional 35 milliliter of serous fluid are lost. So you can say that approximately 80 milliliter of total or whole blood is lost. But this can vary. So the menstrual fluid is normally non-clotting, remember, because it contains a substance that is known as fibrinolysin, along with the necrotic endometrium. Excessive bleeding occurs from the uterine surface. The quantity of fibrinolysin may not be sufficient to prevent clotting, thus the clots occur. Okay. Within 4 to 7 days after menstruation starts, the loss of blood ceases because by this time the endometrium has become re-epithelialized. Is it clear? So this is a diagram that is showing you the different phases of endometrial growth. Look, this is the proliferative phase in which there's proliferation of the stroma and the gland. Similarly, their height is increasing. And this is the secretory phase in which there is accumulation of the lipid and development of more blood vessels. And here is the menstrual phase in which you can see that there is shedding of the endometrium along with the passage of necrotic material and the hemorrhages area. This is a diagram that is showing you the collective phases of menstrual cycle. Here you can see the first is the follicular genesis, right? This is the different steps of follicle development. Here is the primary follicle, primordial follicle, then it will develop an antrum, then this is the process of ovulation, then the development of corpus luteum. Here you can see that there is basal body rise of temperature at the time of ovulation because it occurs because of excessive release of progesterone at that time. Okay. And here are the different stages of hormone that are you showing. That in the blue, this is follicular stimulating hormone. Sorry, this one is the estradiol. It is also rising before ovulation. Look, the green one is the luteinizing hormone, and there is pre-ovulatory surge at the time of ovulation. Okay, and here is the histological changes that are occurring in the endometrial site. This is the ending of the menstruation, and here is the proliferative phase. Then this is the secretory phase, and then again it will start here. Okay. Now, how the female monthly rhythm is regulated. This is our third learning objective. So the female hormone, you are already aware that there are three hierarchies of hormones. Like first we have gonadotropin releasing hormone that is released from the hypothalamus. This gonadotropin releasing hormone is released in a pulsatile fashion. Remember that it is released after 90 minutes, okay, and after 1 to 2 hours. The anterior pituitary secretes follicle stimulating hormone and the luteinizing hormones from the basophil cells, okay, in response to release of gonadotropin hormones. The third is the estrogen and progesterone that are released from the ovaries, which are response to sex hormones from the anterior pituitary. They all form the different stages of hierarchy. Then you should know that there are some points that can come in your exam and can confuse you easily. So you should know that the low levels of estrogen, they inhibit luteinizing hormone through a negative feedback. The mechanism is uncertain, but the high levels of estrogen, they will increase luteinizing hormone in a positive feedback mechanism. Why? Because they increase gonadotropin receiving hormone receptor concentration, and this occurs especially in the late follicular phase that is created in a peri-ovulatory luteinizing hormone surge from the pituitary. While high levels of estrogen, they decrease follicle stimulating hormone secretion. Is it clear? So remember these points. Okay, low levels estrogen inhibit LH, while the high level they increases luteinizing hormone. Okay, while similarly they will decrease follicle stimulating hormone. Low levels of progesterone, they have a positive feedback effect on the pituitary luteinizing hormone and FSH, both. Okay, it is seen especially prior to ovulation, and it contributes to the luteinizing hormone surge by increasing sensitivity to the gonadotropin releasing hormone in pituitary, while the high level of progesterone in the luteal phase, they inhibit LH. Okay, it's opposite to these of estrogen and FSH by decreasing gonadotropin releasing hormone production from the hypothalamus and decrease sensitivity to the gonadotropin releasing hormone. This is a diagram that is showing you the hypophyseal pituitary ovarian axis. Okay, the hypothalamus, especially the center, lies in the arcuate and the preoptic nucleus. From here, the gonadotropin releasing hormone is released in pulses. Pulsatile release is very much important. Otherwise, the anterior pituitary gland will become insensitive to its effect. Okay. Then it causes the release of luteinizing hormone and the follicle stimulating hormone from the anterior pituitary, which will causes the gonads to release sex hormones. Okay, in the positive, you can see that there is positive control, means they are producing more hormones. Okay, but you can see here also the negative. The negative is that they are actually inhibiting the release, like here testosterone in the male, and here you can see the estrogen. Okay, estrogen will inhibit the anterior pituitary to release follicle stimulating hormone, and up to mild extent it will also inhibit hypothalamus to release this gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this is an hypophysio pituitary ovarian axis that is showing you hierarchies of different hormones. This is also a diagram from the Guyton, and this is showing you the same description in a different way. Okay, here you can see that behavioral effect, they also inhibit the gonadotropin releasing hormone and disturb its secretion. So that's why this all ovulation and all these processes are affected. Here you can see that inhibin is producing from the granular cells and activin is also producing from the granular cells. They are actually the local mediators. Activin activate the anterior pituitary, while the inhibin, it inhibit the anterior pituitary to release follicle stimulating hormone, right? So go ahead through this picture. Now, important points to remember. You should know that theca cells respond to luteinizing hormone. Okay, the granular cells, they respond to follicle stimulating hormone. Luteinizing hormone stimulate production of androgens from cholesterol within the theca cells, which are converted into estrogen by the process of aromatization in the granular cells under the influence of follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, remember these 3 points also. So inhibin and activin, they are autocrine mediators produced by the granular cells. Inhibin downregulate follicle stimulating hormone, and activin increases follicle stimulating hormone binding on the follicle. Similarly, we have insulin-like growth factor, kisspeptin, and the leptins. They are new mediators that are functioning in a paracrine way. This is a diagram that is showing you that how theca and granular cells, they produce the different estrogen, right? This is the theca cell. Here is the receptor for luteinizing hormone. This is the receptor for LDL cholesterol, because you know cholesterol is the substrate. This substrate is then acted upon by different enzymes to form pregnenolone, then progesterone, and then androgen. Androgen are mainly testosterone and diandrostenedione. This androgen then diffuses into the neighboring granular cell, this granular cell, right? This granular cells, and again you can see that it is having receptor for LDL, low density lipoprotein cholesterol. It has a receptor for luteinizing hormone as well as follicle stimulating hormone. Remember, in the theca cell, there is no receptor for follicle stimulating hormone. So the granular cells, when follicle stimulating hormone receptor is activated, it will activate cyclic AMP, and then aromatase step is activated, which convert this androgen that is diffused from theca cells to the granular cells into the estrogen. So this estrogen is released in more amount, which will further inhibit this FSH to be released. Now coming to the applied physiology, that is our last learning objective. You should know what are anovulatory cycles. Okay, if the pre-ovulatory surge of luteinizing hormone is not sufficient magnitude, ovulation will not occur, remember. And the cycles, they are said to be anovulatory, means the cycle are there, but the ovulation has not taken place. So the phases of sexual cycles continue, but they are altered in the following way. First, what happens? The lack of ovulation, it causes failure of development of the corpus luteum. One thing. So there is almost no secretion of progesterone during the later portion of the cycle. Second, the cycle is shortened by several days, but the rhythm will continue. Okay, how they are identified? Because they are having short cycles and there is no secretion of progesterone. The first few cycles after the onset of puberty, they are usually anovulatory. Remember, at the onset of puberty, it's a normal physiological process. Okay, as these are cycles occurring several months to several years before menopause, means before the onset of puberty, sorry, after the onset of puberty and before menopause. These are normal physiological changes, right? They occur because the LH surge is not potent enough at this time to cause ovulation. Second thing is the menopause. You know that menopause at the age of 40 to 50 years, the sexual cycles usually become irregular, right? And ovulation often fails to occur because there is depletion of the remaining follicle and the reduced hormone production as well. So after a few months to a few years, the cycle ceases altogether and completely. The period during which the cycle ceases and the female sexual hormones diminish to almost none is called a menopause. For menopause, there should be at least 12 months duration of absence of this menstrual cycle. Now, third is the irregularities of the menstrual cycle. Okay, there are different varieties. You can find amenorrhea. Amenorrhea means complete absence of menstruation for more than 6 months in the absence of pregnancy in a woman of fertile age. Okay, then comes the oligomenorrhea. Oligomenorrhea, you know that there are irregular periods at interval of more than 35 days with only 4 to 9 periods per day. Remember, the normal duration was less than 20 days to 35 days. But if they are more than 35 days, it will come under the heading of oligomenorrhea. The causes can be multiple. They can be hypothalamic causes, they can be pituitary causes, they can be ovarian or endometrial causes, right? They can be primary, means they are present at the onset of puberty, or secondary, means the previously she was having normal cycles, but then she has got the problem. Okay. Third type is the irregular bleeding. For example, in case of granular cell tumor, they secrete large quantities of estrogen, which exert the usual estrogenic effects that include hypertrophy of the uterine endometrium, and irregular bleeding from this endometrium occur. This is a summary that will help you in the final revision of this lecture. And the lecture I have taken from the Guyton and Hall and the Gynae by the 10 Teachers 20th edition. I will upload a video on the LMS soon. And there is a link of Wikipedia that is related to the menstrual cycle. Go ahead and read all this stuff. Just revise a lecture. It will be helpful to you. If you have any query or any question, please ask in the chat box of anything that is not clear. Please, I'm waiting. Is it all clear to you? Of anything do you not understand? Is it all clear to you? Yes, why not? I'm showing you the summary. Look here, I have mentioned that menarche is the female's first menstrual cycle. Okay, menarche. It's marked by her first episode of the menstrual bleeding, right? So menarche occurs during puberty, which is preceded by the breast growth, axillary, and the pubic hair growth and the growth spurt. These include also the point that I have not discussed previously. So at the initiation of each menstrual cycle, a number of primordial follicles in the female ovaries continue to develop. Okay, only the one that has become the dominant follicle, it continue to grow, while all other follicles, they become atretic and ceases to develop. So the dominant follicle, it is also called the Graafian follicle, at which point meiosis 1 has completed and the ovum is no longer in prophase 1 arrest. Okay. So at the ovulation, the Graafian follicle or the dominant follicle, it expels the ovum from its surrounding tissue, henceforth called the corpus luteum. If no fertilization takes place, the expulsion of the egg occurs from the uterus along with the secretory endometrial lining under the influence of declining level of progesterone. This present as the menstrual bleeding. So if fertilization does occur, the fertilized egg implant in the endometrial wall and the endometrial lining is maintained by progesterone, which is secreted initially by the corpus luteum until the placenta takes over. So we can summarize our lecture in this way, that menstrual cycle is the changes in the normal hormonal levels of the ovaries as well as the structural changes in the uterus as well as the ovary. Okay. Then it has it is occurring at two simultaneously steps, right? The uterus and the ovaries. No, Minha, absence of menstruation does not mean an ovulatory cycle. Anovulatory cycles are actually short. There will be menstruation will be there, but there is no ovum is released. Means the person will not become pregnant. Okay. Any other question, or should I stop? Should I stop the lecture? So in exam, they can ask you about different hormones that are related with the menstrual cycle, or they can ask you about the phases of uterine cycle or ovarian cycle, okay, how they are regulated and in applied physiology. Yes, anyone else? Or should I finish my lecture, please? Okay, thank you all. I'm completing here. Okay, good luck to all.